This is Gucci Man. Kind of based on the interview of Butch Wilmore that Eric Berger released a couple of weeks ago, or a couple of days ago, on the post Starliner crew test flight. I think we have enough information now to get a pretty good sense of which thrusters failed and in what order on Starliner during its crew docking attempt. So here we have kind of a representation of sorts of Starliner with its 28 service module reaction control motors. These are the low thrust 100-pound motors that are used for attitude, station keeping, and kind of low delta V maneuvers in orbit. So the first place we want to start, Wilmore says, and then we lost the third thruster. Now again, they're all in the same direction. And we lose two of the bottom thrusters. We've lost a port thruster, and now we're zero fault tolerant. So just quick breakdown. They're all for the same facing direction. We know that they're the aft facing ones to provide forward translation based on other parts of the interview. So we've lost two of the bottom thrusters and one of the two port thrusters. Again, all in the same direction. I don't think we know the order of these three motors failing. I think it's kind of immaterial. It's two on the bottom, one on the port. We're zero fault tolerant. So what that means is if this motor fails, Starliner loses the ability to translate forward. If it just has the two motors over here, if it just has a motor over here and a motor over here, it needs to have an opposite pair in order to translate forward, which could be this opposite pair or an opposite pair over here. Wilmore continues, we lost a fourth thruster. Now we've lost 6 degrees of freedom control. We can't maneuver forward. So losing that fourth thruster and losing 6 degrees of freedom, it means that this motor has to be the one that failed. The other port thruster. So 2 on the bottom, 2 on the port. We don't necessarily know the order of all of these failing, but we do know that these were the first 4 that failed. At this point, Mission Control is able to remotely restart the computer system. It's able to restart the sensors to bring 2 of the motors back online. We don't know which 2 came back online, but we can discern from a little bit more context that it is a pair that came back online. So it's either the pair that's in the port or the pair that's on the bottom. For this representation, we're going to assume it's a pair on the bottom. But again, it kind of doesn't matter. The next thing that we get from the interview, which Wilmore says 2 of the 4 thrusters came back online. Now we're back to single fault tolerant, but then we lose a fifth jet, so we're down to 0 fault tolerant again. So we're single fault tolerant, just kind of a check here. If we lose any, we can lose any motor and still have forward control, but we can't lose any 2. So again, if we lost these 2, we lose that forward translation ability. And he says, we lost a 5th jet. The 5th jet, to me, implies it's not one of the 4 failed again. So it's one of these 2 or one of these 2. But then that last bit, so we know one of these 4 thrusters was the 5th jet to fail. But because Wilmore says that we're down to 0 fault tolerant again after that failure, it must be one of these 2. That is to say, one of the motors opposite the restored pair is the 5th through fail. So just kind of walking through, if we lose one of these 2 motors, we're still single fault tolerant because we could lose this motor and still be okay. But if we instead fail one of the starboard thrusters in this instance, so one of the ones on that kind of orthogonal grouping with the paired fail, the pair that's failed, We're down to 0 fault tolerant because if this motor then fails, we're still back in that unable to translate forward configuration with only these 4 forward-facing, or aft-facing, whatever, forward-thrusting RCS. At this configuration, after the 5th jet fail, they restart and all but one motor comes back online. So we don't know which motors were restored, but we know 2 of them came back online. I think we can assume, so we can assume, if it's one of the early ones that just stayed failed, it doesn't really matter. We're in a symmetrical configuration, and if it's only one thruster that's down. So this is kind of the final state where they were able to still be in that 2 fault tolerant configuration, which enabled the auto dock with ISS. So hopefully that's informative. Quick rundown of the failures and which motors actually failed based on the interview with Bullmore. Thanks.